and I don't see any questions. Thanks for bringing this here. I think this is an important conversation to have, and I appreciate the way people presented today. That will close our hearing on LB 621 and bring us to the main event, judging from the number of people in the room. 543. Before we begin, for those of you who have arrived later, how many people are going to testify on this bill or would like to as a proponent? 2. Okay, how many as an opponent? Okay, so we're probably going to be okay on the half-hour thing. Just remember or be respectful of the fact that there's a number of people that want to speak today. Senator Brandt, welcome to your Judiciary Committee.
And thank you for having me. The pages are passing out the amendment which replaces the bill. Good morning, Chairman Lathrop and members of the Judiciary Committee. My name is Tom Brandt, T-O-M-B-R-A-N-D-T. I represent Legislative District 32, Fillmore, Thayer, Jefferson, Saline, and southwestern Lancaster counties. Today I'm introducing Legislative Bill 543. LB 543 would adopt the Agricultural Equipment Right to Repair Act, known as Right to Repair. It is the term used by customers, in this case farmers and independent mechanics, about having access to the tools they need in order to be able to repair equipment they already own, such as tractors, combines, center pivots, robotic milking machines, livestock building controllers, telemetry systems used for guidance, and the list goes on. As we've seen with automobiles, over time, ag equipment has become an elaborate web of software and sensors. While some of this software has increased the efficiency of some tasks, it has also allowed manufacturers to take increasing control of the repair process by restricting access to authorized dealers. Unlike the automotive industry that allows right to repair, for owners and independent mechanics, LB 543 only deals with agriculture equipment, not other machines that have been in other right to repair legislation. In a typical right to repair scenario, an electronic sensor notices an error and puts the machine into limp mode. The machine moves slowly but does not fully operate. When the problem is diagnosed and repaired, the error code is cleared and the machine can go back to working normally. This is what legislation like LB 543 is meant to address by allowing the owner access to machine software to bring the machine back to the manufacturer's specifications. Serious repairs can still be fixed by licensed dealers. A simple fix today can start with a cost in the hundreds of dollars, but will quickly escalate to thousands of dollars after multiple farm visits by a dealership mechanic. When breakdowns happen during the narrow window of planting or harvest, they have a detrimental effect on the ag operation. Dealership mechanics can be swamped with work, and it can sometimes take days to make it out to the farm for what in many situations is a simple repair that could be performed by the customer while precious time is lost. Original equipment manufacturers, known as OEMs, say the farmers have always had access to the tools they need to repair equipment, and that right to repair bills would open up trade secrets and proprietary information. LB 543 would not allow that to happen. 3 years ago, OEMs said that by January 2021, farmers would have access to everything they need for equipment repairs. OEMs staved off right to repair legislation around the country by promising to deliver access. And here we are 3 years later, and the farmers are still struggling to get the tools promised in the agreement. U.S. Public Interest Research Group, PIRG, recently published a report on right to repair that claims dealers and manufacturers have not held up their end of the bargain, and that it is still extremely difficult, if not impossible, for farmers to get diagnostic software, tools, or parts from dealers as was promised. One example from the report is that a combine, which has 125 different computer sensors, if those sensors start showing an error code, the combine will not run, stopping harvest because the farmer does not have immediate access to the tools they need to fix the problem. Some farmers, desperate for a solution, have resorted to using software and tools of questionable origin to diagnose and repair their equipment. Others are buying 40-year-old tractors because they're more repairable than newer models loaded with software. This is getting ridiculous. I filed Amendment 284, which I passed out. This replaces LB 543. We listened to the dealers and manufacturers to address their concerns, including removing language dealing with warranties, defining the term fair and reasonable, clarifying what repair does not mean modify, and removing language allowing access to security logs. While working to address their concerns, there are still those manufacturers that will be against any right to repair legislation no matter what, and are using fear-mongering about what LB 543 does and does not do. Let me set the record straight. Number one, they say special interest groups that are behind this bill only want to be allowed to gain access to steal valuable source code. LB 543 specifically disclaims any interest in source code. The only software requirement is the ability to restore existing embedded software back to its original state. Restoration is impossible without this access. Number two, they say farmers will use repair documentation to illegally tamper with emissions. The environment will be harmed, and dealers will not be able to sell used equipment easily. Tampering with emissions is not allowed in repair as defined in LB 543. Tampering has been going on for years without access to repair materials, and emissions tampering is illegal under federal law and is not made legal by this bill. Number three, they say farmers will get injured repairing their own equipment. Not so. With the same tools and diagnostics as available to the dealership, farmers will be able to complete repairs the same as dealership technicians. It's insulting to farmers to say that it is unsafe for them to repair a piece of machinery they are familiar with, having owned it for years. Refusal to provide essential diagnostics only increases the incentive to find alternatives, possibly illegal. Number four, they say manufacturers already allow farmers to fix their own equipment and have for years. If this is true, why has right to repair legislation been filed in 21 states? The majority of these bills include farm equipment because farmers are exasperated. These bills would not be filed if farmers were not asking for help. If the tools already existed for repairs, farmer owners would already be using them, and we would not be here today. LB 543 is narrowly tailored, common sense legislation meant to address repairs that farmers can do themselves and will save our farmers time and money and break the monopoly that manufacturers have over repairs. Right to repair is the very spirit of rural Nebraska. If you grew up or work on a farm or ranch, you are by your very nature an innovator. If it breaks, it is on you to fix it. LB 543 has the necessary machinery Nebraskans require to fix the growing problem of repair isolation to solve problems on the farm in a timely manner. As a fourth-generation Nebraska farmer, I would ask if the committee has any questions.
Senator Geist.
You spoke just a second ago, you read my mind, about other states. You said 21 have filed a bill similar to this. Have any been successful to date?
I don't have that information per se. Anecdotally, I heard Vermont's came out. I know Florida's is going forward. I know Montana is making a push, but outside of that, I can't tell you specifically. Maybe one of the later testifiers can answer that,
okay.
And we'll try and get that information to you.
Thank you.
Senator DeBoer.
Thank you, Senator Lathrop. Thank you, Senator Brandt, for bringing this bill. If I'm a seller of the original equipment do I have to always be a parts seller then too? Am I required to sell parts? What if I just want to sell the original equipment, but I don't want to sell parts?
I'm sure that's your option, and I'm sure some of the opponents to this bill will represent the original equipment manufacturers. They could probably answer that better, but I don't know of any obligation to have to support the equipment.
Okay. And then if they do sell parts, or if there is someone who does sell parts, are they required, like what happens if I'm just out of a part? Is that a problem, or I don't have I can't support a certain kind of computer program diagnostic tool or something just because I just don't happen to deal in that area? What happens to me then?
In the bill, it says if they no longer support that piece of equipment, then they're exempt. But if they do support the piece of equipment, those tools need to be made available to the owner.
What does it mean, support the equipment? Like, if I just sell John Deere and there's Caterpillar, ooh, I came up with another brand, has a similar kind of thing, but I'm a John Deere dealer and I don't sell the Caterpillar, and somebody comes in and I repair John Deere's, am I required to then give them, okay.
No, you just have to support what you sell.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Senator Slama.
Thank you, Chairman Lathrop, and thank you, Senator Brandt, for being here and for carrying the torch on this bill. So just to clarify your statement, so equipment that they support, if a piece of equipment has been taken out of specs through a farmer repairing it, shutting off the environmental stoppers, that sort of thing, would they still be required to repair that piece of equipment even though it's out of environmental regulations or whatever standards they gave?
Yeah, and this is a big discussion on this bill, because what happens today is called chipping. Mm-hmm. And so as an owner, a farmer may work with a third party to increase horsepower on a tractor. That takes it out of manufacturer's specifications. Mm-hmm. And so if that souped up tractor would come into the dealership, it's a safety concern for that dealership. And I hear stories of this all the time, that maybe I have a 100-horse tractor, it's put out 150 horse, this thing could blow apart. Mm-hmm. What we're talking about here is not about those illegal situations, and particularly on the exhaust. What we're talking about here is the 95% of the owners that want to repair their own equipment that they purchase. And what's a fairly new phenomenon in farm equipment in the last 20 years is all the electronics on the farm equipment. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you as a farmer, I'm overjoyed when I snap a piece of steel, because I can get that off the shelf, I can fix that. But when I've got code problems, that's another story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when it comes to LB 543, do we specifically exclude those 5% that are souping up their tractors, they're getting around the specs?
You know, if it's an illegal operation, this bill does not condone that. You know, that's going to be up to the dealerships to handle on an individual basis.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I do not see any other questions for you, Senator Brandt. I'm confident you'll be around to close.
All right.
We will take proponent testimony at this time. Hey, Wendy. I'll be right back.
Go ahead.
Okay. Good morning, Judiciary Committee. My name is Lance Atwater, Lanceatwater. I'm a farmer from Air, Nebraska, and I also serve on the Nebraska Farm Bureau Board of Directors. I'm here today in support of LB 543 and the amendment on behalf of 7 agriculture organizations, including Nebraska Farm Bureau, the Nebraska State Dairy Association, Nebraska Corn Growers Association, Nebraska Pork Producers, Nebraska Cattlemen, Nebraska Soybean Association, and the Nebraska Wheat Growers Association. LB 543 addresses an ongoing issue of concern to farmers whereby farm equipment manufacturers have maintained exclusive control over equipment information and technology, in turn limiting farmers and ranchers' ability to purchase information and tools necessary to repair their own equipment or turn to an independent third-party service technician. Production agriculture is a machinery-intense, time-sensitive business subject to Mother Nature and the needs of livestock. Equipment must work when livestock need fed and crops are ready to be harvested. Timely and cost-effective repair is vital to our members. LB 543 offers a solution to this long-standing concern. However, it is important this committee know that Nebraska Farm Bureau has been and continues to be engaged in deliberations at the state and national levels with farm equipment manufacturers about addressing the right to repair issued through a private memorandum of understanding similar to the automobile industry. Due to these memorandums of understanding, vehicle owners and independent technicians can purchase information, diagnose equipment, and parts needed to repair vehicles. Agriculture producers do have a great appreciation for the role of manufacturers and their local dealers play in our business and our rural communities. They're an important partner to us. With that in mind, our members feel strongly about having the same flexibility in farm equipment repair that's available in the automobile industry. Nebraska Farm Bureau and the other organizations I am representing today believe a private solution through a memorandum of understanding is better for all parties. However, such an agreement would need to be resolved before we would step away from LB 543. Our members want to be able to do the same things to their own equipment that farm technicians can do to our equipment when we go to a dealer. We are not seeking the right to modify farm equipment, only to repair it. Furthermore, we are not interested in the broader right to repair discussion surrounding off-road vehicles and consumer electronics. In closing, I would reiterate that unless an agreement can be reached with the equipment manufacturers at the national level, LB 543 is the solution we intend to pursue. We encourage the committee to support and advance the amended version of LB 543 to general file to continue these important conversations. Thank you, and I'd be happy to take any questions regarding this or how this bill could impact my family operation.
Okay. Any questions? Senator Sloan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you very much for being here today, Mr. Atwater. I wanted you to provide a little bit more insight. So these groups would support a private memorandum similar to what the automobile industry, because this has come up before specifically with the automobile industry, and a private memorandum was established then. How would that directly relate to this issue and our farmers, with like specific examples of how it would impact them through a private memorandum rather than LB 543?
Well, so right now so to go to the automobile industry, you can basically take your car if you need work on. You can basically go right down to your local mechanic instead of having to go to the dealership. So if you have a Ford pickup, you don't necessarily have to go to the Ford dealership to get that vehicle repaired. You can go to your local automobile, like I said, technician right down the street maybe. So with this in mind, with farmers right now, with our limited ability to be able to repair, diagnose our equipment, you pretty much have to go to, if you own John Deere or Case Equipment, you got to go to that dealership to have that repaired because of the technologies we have today. And so this memorandum is, again, similar to the automobile industry, but I'd also go back to what Senator Brandt said earlier. There was an agreement to try to have something in writing by January 2021. Unfortunately, we didn't get that met, and I think both sides could probably point the finger at each other on it. We know there's been a lot going on the last couple of years, but at that same point, it was January 2021. Everyone was aware that if we weren't going to be able to get to something, then we were going to pursue the legislative route. And I do say that what is in this bill and what's in the amendment that Senator Brandt has, really I don't see why the equipment manufacturers and dealers should be alarmed by what's in there, because basically this is what they put in a memorandum if we could get that memorandum agreed to.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for your testimony.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Senators, my name is Tom Swartz, Tomschwarz, and I'm a farmer from Bertrand, Nebraska. As a 60-year-old farmer, I've witnessed many changes in agricultural equipment repair. When I was young, my grandfather and father could deal with almost any repair that we needed. Over time, equipment became more complex, and we turned to local dealerships and mechanic shops for more of the complex issues. I'm one of the lucky farmers in that I have an outstanding dealer within 25 miles of my operation. Many farmers and ranchers don't have that luxury, and mechanics may drive many hours to get to their places. We work in an unforgiving industry where weather rules our lives. A crop that's ready to harvest today may not be there tomorrow. Farmers and ranchers need the ability to have local mechanics help them with their equipment repairs. They need access to repair diagnostics and the ability to put used parts on machines and get the tractor or combine to accept them. Telling a small farmer that the company will give you access to this support, but it will cost $8,000 a year, really wouldn't help. It has to be affordable. Farmers don't need this so that they can bypass emissions or change the power settings on equipment. They just need to be able to repair it. I will freely acknowledge that if someone were to use these aids to make changes to the emission or power systems, the liability should lie with the farmer or rancher, not the original equipment manufacturer. Farmers have been taking responsibility for their repairs for years, and I don't see that changing. Manufacturers have essentially developed an unregulated monopoly on repair. I feel we can all agree that unregulated monopolies can be a bad thing. We in Nebraska don't let railroads or natural gas companies do whatever they want and charge whatever they want for their services. Why would we allow those things for equipment manufacturers? I don't even believe that it's in the best long-term interest of these equipment manufacturers to allow this to continue. A monopoly can be a great thing for a company in the short run, but over time, monopolies breed inefficiency, poor productivity, and higher costs as there's no motivation to do a better job. When copyright laws didn't go the way they wanted, these companies developed an end-user license agreement. This beauty essentially says that when you turn the key on in the equipment, you're agreeing to this contract, one that you may not have had the opportunity to read, let alone negotiate the terms to. In other words, if any of you were to come out to my farm and turn on a piece of my equipment, you agree to this end-user license agreement. Problems like I've talked about are going to get worse until someone steps in and stops it. I'd like to thank Senator Brandt for bringing this bill, and with that, I'll wrap it up.
Okay, let's see if there's any questions. Senator Geist.
I do. I will apologize for the elementary nature of my question. I'm not a farmer and don't pretend to be, and nor is anyone in my family. So if you, now I understand if you change the emissions and all of that, does that void a warranty?
My understanding is yes, that voids the warranty if you do that.
Okay, but these minor repairs that you're looking to be able to perform, would those void a warranty?
No, because what I'm talking about here, and I'm just going to give you an example, it may not be a perfect example, but let's say I've got a component on the tractor, say the power takeoff, which allows us to move power from the engine back to a machine that's behind the tractor. If the PTO goes out, I can buy a used PTO and put it in the tractor, but the tractor has to accept that new component.
Okay.
It's got to be told, you know, it's
That
okay.
it's
This thing's
compatible.
ready. Yeah, it's compatible. It's going to run. And that's got to be done through a computer program.
Okay, thank you.
Senator DeBoer.
Couldn't resist asking a question of a farmer from Bertrand, which is where my mom's family's from. So, you said when copyright laws didn't go the way they wanted. Can you tell me? I'm not familiar with that. What happened with that?
There was a large disagreement or agreement, well, ultimately, over who holds rights to intellectual property. Now, this was actually generated by the movie industry and entertainment industry in a big way. And ultimately, then equipment companies came into it as well. So that, you know, who owns intellectual property and how long does it last? And essentially what happened was that was thrown into the Library of Congress, which seemed odd to me at the time, but I guess that's where it is. And the Library of Congress then ultimately said, okay, you know, farmers, you do have a right to repair your equipment. That shouldn't be taken away from you just because these people own this intellectual property. Well, the companies, of course, don't like that. They like their monopoly that they have, and they want to see to it that it continues. And so one of the things that was brought out was an end-user license agreement. I apologize. I should have brought a copy of this. It's not really all that long of a piece. But what it does essentially says if you turn the key on of this machine, whether it's a combine, tractor, whatever, you know, you're agreeing to the terms of this. And again, literally, you could come to my farm, and if I had you take off of the tractor, when you turn the key on, supposedly you're under the...
I appreciate that. I didn't realize that they had extended that to the equipment manufacturers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for being here today. Appreciate hearing from you. Next testifier.
Good morning, Senators.
Welcome.
Thank you for your time today. My name is Jacob Bish, J-A-C-O-B, B as in boy, I-S-H, of Giltner, Nebraska. I'm a third-generation family business owner. We manufacture agricultural equipment. Bish Enterprises is in Giltner, Nebraska. And I came to this hearing today to support LB 543 to adopt the Agricultural Equipment Right to Repair Act. 4 years ago, Senator Brash introduced similar legislation into the state and was laughed out of the committee hearing with the quip, "Better luck next time." 2 years ago, the Nebraska Farm Bureau was drafting legislation, but this legislation was killed by Bruce Riker, who believes that the best solution isn't legislative or regulatory, it's parties working things out. While I support Mr. Riker's magnanimity of the situation, it's time to stop being disingenuous. In late 2018, John Deere and other manufacturers did promise to provide these tools by January 1st, 2021, and they have not held up their end of this bargain. Today, the Nebraska Farm Bureau supports the right to repair. Nebraska farmers support the right to repair. Small businesses support the right to repair. And Nebraska citizens, your constituents, support the right to repair. Today is the time to take genuine action to support our farmers. Not tomorrow, not next year, not better luck next time. We must support our farmers, we must support the integrity of our nation's food security, and we must support the right to repair. Today, 21 states are debating some form of right to repair legislation. 21 states have groups working to protect consumer rights, from consumer electronics to specialized equipment such as agricultural machines and medical equipment. John Deere, Apple, General Motors, and many companies are working hard in those states to suppress our consumer rights. Nebraska needs to be the state to stand up and support our farmers' right to repair agricultural equipment. Thank you again for your time today. I support LB 543 to adopt the Agricultural Equipment Right to Repair Act.
All right. Senator Slama.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you very much, Mr. Bish, for being here today. Just to clarify on the numbers, I think this was raised as a question earlier. So 21 odd states have introduced this kind of legislation. Have we seen any states where it's passed?
The only state I know of is Massachusetts, specifically in the automotive industry. I do not know of any states that passed agricultural or consumer electronics right to repair.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you for your time.
Next testifier. Welcome back.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Senators, and thank you for your time today. My name is Andrew Bish of Giltner, Nebraska. I'm a third-generation family business owner that manufactures agricultural equipment, and I came to this hearing to support LB 543.
Better spell your last name for us.
B as in boy, ISH.
Okay.
Adopting right to repair legislation in the state of Nebraska is essential to support farmers and small agricultural companies like Bish Enterprises that have operated in the state since 1976. To provide some perspective, my grandfather Harv Bish founded our business in 1976, creating a business modifying components on a John Deere header to fit a John Deere combine because farmers needed a solution to a problem that the big manufacturers were not resolving and only asking their customer to purchase newer and more expensive equipment. Not better equipment, mind you, just newer and more expensive. My father, Brad Bish, continued in his path and took over the business about 20 years ago. Today, I operate the business day to day, and collectively, we have over 120 different combine and combine header combinations that make it possible for today's producers to save money when they need a new combine or a header. Our business benefits the farmers of this state and most states, frankly, and we never negatively impact the manufacturers. Header adapters we make so that farmers can operate their preferred equipment choices, even if that equipment is not produced by the same manufacturer. We work with companies like Headsight in Indiana to allow these different devices to communicate electronically, despite being wired on two separate systems. Farmers do this because it's often more economical and less wasteful than the cost of purchasing new equipment when it is not necessary. Large agricultural manufacturers such as John Deere attempt to control private property after the sale of the item by restricting access to the diagnostic and repair information of this equipment. The restriction of data makes our job harder and our partners' jobs more difficult, if not impossible, for them to perform, which ultimately means we cannot provide our customers with their preferred solutions. We cannot allow large agricultural manufacturers to control how farmers can produce crops and who is allowed to perform repairs. Without right to repair legislation, we would put our nation's food security into the hands of corporations and boardrooms. We must trust our farmers. We must support the right to repair legislation and make it illegal for large agricultural manufacturers to restrict diagnostic and repair information and tools. I've come today to the Capitol to support LB 543 because I support Nebraska's farmers, I support Nebraska's small businesses, and this legislation is needed for my business to support our customers and to employ our team. Thank you again for your time today, Senators.
I don't see any questions for you. Thanks for being here, Mr. Bish.
Thank you all.
Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman. My name is Willie Cade, C-A-D-E. And thank you, rest of the committee, for the time today to allow me to testify. I'm a member of the Nebraska Farm Bureau and a board member of Repair.org, an international organization on right to repair. I'll keep my remarks brief. I'm also the grandson of Theo Brown, who was board member of John Deere for 30 years and headed the Research and Development Department of Deere. During his lifetime, my grandfather earned 155 patents. One of his earliest patents involved the manure spreader. Some people think it went genetic. I have three concepts that I want to provide today. One, parties agree that farmers should be able to fix their own equipment. Two, now is the time to move on LB 543. And three, we need your help to make this happen. Senator Brandt's statement of intent for this legislation, quote, would allow farmers to fix their own machinery, quote, is quite right and necessary, I believe. The Association of Equipment Manufacturers and the Equipment Dealers Association also agree, as evidenced by their statement of principles posted on the internet, where they say AEM and EDA reiterate their joint commitment to provide end users with the information and tools needed to maintain, diagnose, and repair their equipment from 2018, over 2 years ago. And it's this printout here of their principles on the back of my testimony. That same statement said that January 1st was the date. We have waited, and they're still not provided the information. We're still waiting. In 2012, Massachusetts passed the right to repair legislation for automobiles. Only after that legislation was passed did the automobile manufacturers agree to a national plan to implement right to repair for automobiles. Only after that legislation was passed. Please help us get a binding agreement with AEM and EDA. As opponents to this legislation present their side, please don't believe their sound and fury. In short, parties agree, the time is now, and we need your help. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Cate? I do not see any.
Just one piece, there's 21 states who have legislation, 33 bills, 4 of them are ag only. That are currently
A lot of them deal with autos and electronics.
A lot of them are general, yes.
Okay, very good. Appreciate that information too. All right, next proponent. I appreciate 2 things, that we're doing this in an orderly way and you guys have figured out how to do this. That doesn't always happen. And that you're observing the masks and we appreciate that courtesy as well. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Jared Stroh, Jerrad, and I'm a farmer from Juniata, Nebraska, which is just west of Hastings. So my testimony is in favor of LB 543, and it's probably more anecdotal because a lot of the things that the previous gentlemen have talked about, I've lived. So I simply want to have access to all the diagnostic features of the equipment to be able to perform repairs in a timely manner. Farmers are inherently independent, and maybe I'm on the extreme end of that because after I graduated from engineering school, I came home to farm, and that's the part that I enjoy, is modifying and improving and adapting equipment to serve my purposes. But when something goes wrong and you have to wait on a technician to come out and diagnose your equipment for you, when it's something simple, many times they've plugged in the equipment diagnostic terminal and said, well, your fuel filters are plugged. Well, gosh, I could have fixed that on my own. So I've often wanted to have that ability, like with an automobile, you can go to the parts store and buy an $80 code reader and find out specifically down to what cylinder is misfiring. So I want that detailed information when something goes wrong with my equipment. During the compressed seasons, there's not enough technicians to go around, and sometimes you're on a waiting list because of that. And I've often said, with the cost of new machines these days, maybe that EDT ought to be included in that package. I wouldn't think it would be that much more expense, and then to have the software updated to be able to do the diagnostics. Personally, I'm not looking to alter the performance of the equipment in any way, horsepower or emissions-wise. Like was mentioned earlier, the third-party vendors are already doing that if somebody wants to have that done. So yeah, I would like to be able to install, there's also software updates on equipment. I'd like to be able to install those myself too. Our technicians are great. They are good guys. I value their opinion, but if I can take a little bit of the load off them and do that myself and save myself the expense, that would be a great deal. So I support LB 543.
Okay. Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
If you're, let's use your clogged fuel filter for an example. You're driving your combine, you have a window of time to get all the harvest done. Combine goes down. You call a service tech right now. Walk me through what you're paying So are they charging you mileage to come out? And
Yes,
some kind of
I
service
believe there's a
fee?
minimum fee, and it varies from dealership to dealership. And pretty standard is $180 just to walk out the door and come to your farm.
Okay.
And then there's mileage on top of that. So, and then there's a trip back too. So,
Do they charge you to plug in the monitor that reads the code that tells you the fuel filters?
I believe once they get there, that's not an extra fee. It's under the hourly service charge, which is probably $130 an hour, $120 an hour to do that.
Okay.
But what happens is the machine will give you a warning code, and a lot of times you can go look up that warning code in the owner's manual, and it says, call your dealer. And then they plug in the EDT and say, well, low fuel rail pressure. You know, that's something that could have
You
been
could have bought
remedied.
the part and put it in yourself.
Right. Or they're on the shelf at home, and I could just go get it and put it in.
Is this, I'm a little surprised that this doesn't show up on your dashboard. Like,
It does.
does it say your fuel filter's out, or it just says, like my car, check engine?
It has check engine light, and then normally a code will come up. And then you have to go to that code list. And it seems like the code lists are getting more and more diluted. And so they're not even giving you the most basic information for, you know.
But you can't find that online. If you have a John Deere, you can't go to their website.
Possibly if you go to like an Ag Talk website that somebody's experienced it before, you can put it out there, but that takes time to find too.
Search. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for answering that question. I don't see any others. Thanks for being here this morning.
Thank you.
Next proponent. We're going to have time for probably 2 more proponents, and then we'll go to opponent testimony.
Thank you, Senator.
Welcome.
Senator Brandt, thank you for introducing the bill. My testimony has evolved since the last half hour, just listening to everybody.
Let's have you give us your name and spell.
Okay, my name is Kevin Kenny,
Can you spell your last name, Kevin?
Kenney.
Very good. Go ahead.
So my testimony has evolved. I don't want to repeat myself. I value the questions that were asked and answered. And I'm going to bring up some of the highlights of what got us here and what I see as a solution. My background is I graduated from UNL Ag Engineering, and I've worked probably 10,000 hours in the last 10 years on equipment systems, on precision ag, and on right to repair. So ask me the hard questions, however you guys are interested. The thing that I want you to point to is the spirit of the American farmer. I had a farmer send me a text this morning, and he wanted me to read it. His name's Callan Ryan. He's a West Point Academy appointee. Army. Now he's a farmer. So he said a quick Google search says 92% of Nebraska is utilized for agriculture. 1 in 4 jobs are ag related. Cash receipts from marketing contribute $21 billion. I guess agriculture is important, and that's why I think that the senator should take time to look at this bill, and he's for it. So, in a lot of things we do in life, it's kind of like playing hockey, like if you're Wayne Gretzky. It's not where the hockey puck is. He was successful. He skated where the hockey puck was going to be. And part of the 2 issues that I have the biggest problem with is that the AEM, the EDA have put in papers that they don't like people messing with emission systems. Well, the last I talked, any of these dealers, the people that have testified the prior 2 hearings, don't have a patent on emission systems. I do. The second thing is that they've accused right to repair advocates of wanting to go out and hack source code. Okay, my emails that I sent you this morning are complicated, but a lot of you folks are lawyers. Please double check everything. And I want especially the AEM, the EDA to read this. We have open source software running tractors that's from Windows CE from 2003. Bill Gates knew it was junk, so he threw it in the ditch in 2005 and made it open source, and they abandoned it in 2013. Our equipment systems in agriculture have not had a safety or security update in 8 years. And that's what they're accusing us of stealing. Hell, I wouldn't take it if it was given to me. You follow me? We need to wake up. This is a security breach. Number one, your computers at home wouldn't have something like that. If you've got Windows 10, you're getting updated every other time Windows wants to update it. Linux is updated. Your cell phones, they're all updated. We have rolling hotspots with tractors vulnerable to a cyber attack. And they accuse us of wanting this software to hack, to manipulate. So with that, I want to answer a couple quick questions. Senator Slama said chipping. She was concerned about that. I am too. This isn't about chipping, but that is legal. The Copyright Office ruled farmers have the right on farm innovation to change anything they'd like. And they can hire third parties to do it. And that was a letter from the Library of Congress. Senator DeBoer, she wanted to know about U.S. copyright concerns, modifying a combine, third parties, extended use license agreement. Okay, this is about the software that is called apps. The operating software, which I just explained, has to be run by the operating software is public source. That's free software that these companies didn't even pay for. That's a real huge point to remember. We want access to the code so we can put our own stuff on these tractors and come up with our own products.
Mr. Kinney, we got one more person that's waiting.
You bet. Any questions?
And we're trying to do this 30-minute thing. But we very much appreciate your expertise in being here today.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Vern Jansen, VERNJANTZEN. I operate a farm outside of Plymouth in northeast Jefferson County. I also serve as the Vice President of the Nebraska Farmers Union. Our President, John Hanson, is not able to testify today in person, so he asked me to come out of hibernation and offer my testimony as a representative of our organization. The subject covered by this bill, as amended, has been the subject of concern during the policy debates during our annual state conventions for many years. And we have an item in our policy handbook that supports the fair repair and right to repair legislation that would allow farmers and independent mechanics access to diagnostic software, information, and other tools in order to repair modern equipment. The farm equipment that you can purchase today is often a complex piece of machinery that will contain more than one computer, along with software, monitors, and sensors to allow the equipment to be operated in the most efficient manner possible. This is a marvel of engineering until something goes wrong and the operator needs to figure out what is wrong. Many times there will be a code displayed to indicate what the problem is, but without a manual or diagnostic tools, the code will mean nothing to the operator. A call will need to be made to the equipment dealer for assistance. Over the years, equipment dealerships have consolidated, and often there's only one dealer for the entire county. Depending on your location, you will wait until a mechanic is available to come, and you will not only pay for the time he works on your broken machine, you will also pay for his time and travel to your location and back to the dealership. Most farmers will tell you that downtime is money lost during planting and harvesting operations. This legislation provides the equipment operator or a local mechanic the ability to obtain the tools necessary to diagnose a problem, and then repair can be made or more expertise can be called in. There are many farmers that are comfortable trying to diagnose equipment problems if they have the proper tools, or they have a neighbor or local mechanic that would be able to fix the problem if they have the tools to figure out what is wrong. This legislation deals with the right to repair and not to modify, and that is an important distinction. The automotive industry has had to deal with this issue, and agreements have been reached to allow non-dealer mechanics to obtain the tools that diagnose and repair recent models of cars and pickups. I like the option to support my local repair shop with my business. One of the underlying issues that this legislation is attempting to address is what are your rights and your choices when you need to repair a piece of equipment. When you buy a piece of equipment, how much of this machine do you really own and control? Most of the manufacturers of farm equipment will inform you that all of the technology in your equipment is proprietary, and they or their representatives are the only ones allowed to deal with the problem that occur. Is this interpretation acceptable, or does this give the manufacturer too much control over how and when you use your equipment and the data that it can generate? I think this legislation is a good compromise, and I would encourage the members of this committee to move this bill as amended to the floor of the legislature for discussion. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks for being here and standing in for the president or the John Hanson.
You bet.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, it's good to hear from Farmers Union. We will now take opponent testimony.
Good morning, Chairman Lathrop and members of the Judiciary Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to present today in opposition of LB 543. My name is Grant Surrey. It's G-R-A-N-T, S as in Sam, U-H-R-E. And I am the manager of customer support for the U.S. and Canada within John Deere. So my team takes care of the dealer channel across that market. And with that, I'd like to share that I take a lot of pride in our team's focus on supporting customers and ensuring that they get the uptime that they need. It's absolutely essential that a farmer gets their crop in and they get their crop out and they take care of their livestock as it's required. So I'm also very thankful that we have 63 John Deere Ag dealer locations across Nebraska with over 1,450 employees. So there's a pretty significant population of Deere dealers here that support the customers as best as they can. And you'll hear from one of those dealers here shortly. And first and foremost, we support customers' ability to repair their machines. We certainly understand that uptime is critical to farming and ranching. And we also know that this is a competitive industry. If we don't take care of our customers, there are other manufacturers and other repair suppliers that will provide that service for them. So we certainly want to be attentive to our customers' needs. The challenge comes when we talk about right to repair versus right to modify, and I think you've heard that on several occasions, comments about modifying equipment. And we certainly provide all the tools that are required. That's the handout here. This is the response to the industry commitment. We meet that commitment today. The tools that are on here are available. Senator Brandt and several other of his colleagues were at a demonstration at the Acres dealer recently that allowed them to observe all these tools in use. And the key thing about modification, and the reason we have one exemption to this is reprogramming, is that we're required as a manufacturer to protect the emissions controls. We're liable to the EPA under the Clean Air Act to ensure that the emissions controls remain functional and perform. We're currently under a degradation factor audit by the EPA, and we have to go gather information off of machines with 8,000 hours on them, provide that to the EPA for their audit, and if we don't comply with their requirements, they can, up to and including, stop us from building engines. So the motto, nothing runs like a deer, becomes a bit of a moot point if there's no engine. And that's the things that are at stake in use audits and in degradation factor audits that are enforceable under the Clean Air Act. Okay. The other issue with modification is safety. These precision ag machines are self-steering. If you've been in a combine during harvest, you're riding along, the machine's adjusting itself and steering itself at the same time. If you have modifications that could affect those steering components, as an example, that very large machinery could go places you don't want it to go. So we take very seriously the safety of the operators and the safety of any bystanders around the equipment. That's the level of sophistication we're at today.
Okay.
The other piece we have is reliability and
Hang on a
durability.
second.
Yes, sir.
When that red light comes on, we've got to have you.
All right,
wrap
well,
up
just
your
to,
last thought.
just to
Stop.
summarize, we don't believe we need legislation to enable customers to repair their machines. We've already enabled that. And what we want to do is make sure that customers have good value from their machines and that the follow-on customers and others are safe and get good use from the equipment and that we stay in compliance with the existing law. Thank
Okay.
you.
Senator McKinney.
Thank you. I think a couple questions. To be clear, if you sell a combine to somebody and they have it on their farm and they modify it, John Deere could still be held liable if something they modify is not within EPA regulations?
So let me make sure I understand the question. If a customer modifies the machine, is
Right.
the customer liable or is John Deere?
Yes.
Ultimately, it depends whether you can prove who modified the machine. And if you change the software, it's often not even visible and detectable that it's been modified. So you'd have to go through some forensic analysis to understand that it's been modified by somebody other than the original equipment spec or beyond the original equipment spec.
Are there currently situations where someone modifies something and it's not detected who did it and you've been held liable because of that?
I'm aware of some unintended motion lawsuits that are underway in states other than Nebraska currently, and that's one of the issues that is at stake.
Okay, because I don't know. I just always thought if somebody bought something and they owned it, they had the right to do whatever they wanted to it. I'm not familiar with farming like that. I live in Omaha, so I was just curious about it. Thank you.
Yeah, one thing that's interesting is farming equipment is much more sophisticated. Think of it more like an aircraft than a car. The multiple functions that are controlled, hydraulic systems, steering systems, that's all highly automated today to ensure we have high productivity in the field and ensure that the producers get the highest yield from their crops, things like that.
All right, thank you.
Senator DeBoer.
Thank you, Senator Lathrop. Thank you for being here. Mr. Suri?
Surrey.
So why not just give them, the farmers, a list of your codes? They're complaining that they get these codes, code 39, whatever. They don't know what the code means. They have the part in their barn. They could just put it in. Why not give them those codes?
So we do. We make access to those through the displays on the complex equipment, and then if they look in the operator's manual, many of them that are relevant to uptime issues are already there. And if they want to go beyond that, they can order the manual for the machine, the technical manual for the machine that has all of them, including the descriptions. So there is varying levels of access, and up to and including the same access that the dealer has.
Why not just give them that when they buy the equipment? I imagine this is a very expensive piece of equipment because I know you guys make good things. Why not just give them the whole code list? I think that would solve some of, it wouldn't solve all of this, certainly not, but it would help them.
So that, again, the sophisticated equipment with the displays, the access is already there. They can access them, including a brief description of what the code means, what the intention is. The reality is on this equipment there can be in excess of 10,000 codes. That's the level of sophistication that exists in this equipment. So they can access them today.
Can they do it online? Could they, if they don't get enough information there, can they go online and put in this is my model, this is the code I'm getting?
In many instances, they can. They can go onto the John Deere App Store, and there are various apps around that equipment that they can download, and they can download, for instance, JD Link, and they can actually, excuse me, if their machine's connected, they can even see those codes remotely.
What does it mean if their machine is connected online?
So a lot of our production ag equipment have telematics on board called JD Link, and through the cell phone network, that machine will actually transmit the codes off board, and the operators can see that either through Operations Center, which is an app that they can use to manage their farming operation, or they can look at the JD Link app and see what codes have been fired.
You said that in many instances. Tell me about the instances in which that isn't true, in which they cannot go and get that information.
Sorry, I missed that.
You said that in many instances they can go online and see those things, or they have access to them in some way. Tell me about the instances in which that isn't true. So you said in many instances that implies there's a remainder. What?
So if you have a machine that's say more of a mid-level tractor that doesn't have the telematics gateway on it, the telematics access, you'd have to go to the machine and look at the display itself to see those codes.
So if I'm a farmer and I have a piece of your equipment, there will never be a time when a code comes up that I can't look up and find out what's wrong with my machine. Is that a true statement?
There will never be a time that you won't be able to look it up if you have the right information. Not all of the codes will be in the operator's manual, but you can certainly go on our bookstore and get the manual that has all of those codes listed in that. Or you can get Customer Service Advisor, which would have all of those codes on board as well, because that's an electronic repository of all of that technical information.
You heard the testimony earlier, and that didn't seem to be what the experience of your users, well, I don't know that they're necessarily John Deere users, but of the users was. Is there a communication problem? What's going on there?
I understand your perspective there, and I too am confused occasionally by that, because we have this on Deere.com. You can go into our parts, and you can go to the dealer. You can look at your operator's manual. You can go to the app store on your phone and see these different options that are available for a operator to get information.
Okay, thank you.
I see no other questions. Thanks for being here this morning.
Thank you, Chairman.
Next, opponent. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, Senators. Good morning, Chairman. My name is Trevor Meekum, Trebor. Meekum is Mecham. I am the Vice President of Global Technology and Industry Relations for Belmont Industries, representing Valley Irrigation. First off, thank you for the opportunity to be able to address my concerns regarding the Legislative Bill 543, Agricultural Equipment Right to Repair Act. On behalf of Belmont Industries and Valley Irrigation and the state of Nebraska, I'd first off like to just say thank you all for your public service. As you are aware, the agricultural industry is thriving, and it is a business that continues to be at the forefront, influencing many sectors of economy, both locally and internationally. With the growing population, diminishing land available today to feed that population, it's important to understand the current development and industry and how it will affect our production and distribution of food. So as a third-generation family farmer and longtime industry professional myself, my career of the past 22 years has spanned into the continual changes and advancements in agriculture that we now benefit from today. This specifically, the advancements in agricultural technology, has transformed many areas of farming, including irrigation. Whether the perspective of a farmer, a participating dealer, or a original equipment manufacturer, I have had the distinguished opportunity to be on each side of the table. As you may know, water is the foundation of many agricultural crops in the U.S. and worldwide. What you may not know is that it also consumes approximately 80% of all the water used in the United States. However, as with many consumer technology trends, we have been able to leverage many benefits to conserve water and energy resources.